It is time for my 2024 AO3 Wrapped, aka how much fanfiction did I read? In the year of our Lord 2024, I read 23.9 million different words of fanfiction. Now, admittedly, that is a 66% decrease from last year. That results in 1,654 different works. This is a timeline of when I read all those words. You can see I started off really strong in January. That would have been winter break. Pretty consistent up until September. Got a girlfriend in September, and we resurged a little bit over November. December obviously is only a half month. Now, admittedly, the day before my first date with my girlfriend, August 17th, 2024, I read 675,000 words in the span of 12 hours, and I did tell her, and she's still with me for some reason. So really a miracle there. My top fandoms, we have Red, White, and Royal Blue finally overtaking Merlin. Merlin put up a good fight the last 2 years, but unfortunately the show has been over for 12 years. But you know what? 25% of the fics being from a fandom that's been dead for 12 years, pretty impressive. Then we have Heartstopper, Percy Jackson, Six of Crows, Supergirl, Legend, and of course a little tiny stint in Challengers. There also was some United CEO stuff that I omitted. Top ships pretty much follows the track of what my top fandoms were. We have First Prince by and large, followed by Merthyr, followed by Nick Charlie. And then admittedly, I read the same amount of Pipa Beth fanfictions as I did Percy Jackson fanfictions. So that's great. Top AUs. 1, I will stand by Friends to Lovers Superiority. By and away my most read AU. We also have a good amount of college and roommate and modern, and I don't read that many coffee shop AUs. Top tags, fluff, angst, smut. I read more canon compliant than canon divergence. Slow burn. Mean word count is 14,630, and median word count though is 5,029. So half of the fics I read are under 5,000 words, or generally considered one-shots. But when I read a long fic, she's long. I also have 172 did not finishes. So I opened the fic and then I just didn't finish it for whatever reason. Number of times I didn't read the tag completely. Mpreg, we have 37, which is down from last year again. Water sports only 11. I'm genuinely very impressed with myself. I did a much better job reading the tags this year. ABO only 24, and major character death down 100 from 115 in 2023. I can read, team. So that has been my 2024 AO3 Wrapped. Welcome to my AO3 Wrap tutorial where I show you how to make what I just showed you, my AO3 Wraps. Now there are some programs that do this online. However, I do caution against putting your username and password into sites that aren't your username and password sites. Most of the time you'll be okay, but there can be bad apples there. And also this is a really good exercise to learn a lot about Excel. Hopefully you'll learn something. If you don't use Excel regularly, you practice. I've heard a lot of good feedback from people being like, I actually learned a lot during this tutorial and it's fun. And you'll get to see more. So what you're going to do first is you're going to Google AO3 works list, and you're going to scroll down until you see this Tumblr blog, Random Fangirling. That brings up this beautiful website. They update it regularly. Shout out to them. They're doing a great job. Tells you all the different things. You can use either the beta or the stable. For this one, I used the beta and I didn't have any issues. And you can drag it up to the bookmark bar, and that's going to enable you to click on it. That's all you need to do with this tab. Then you're going to go to your AO3 history. If you are not logged in, you cannot do this. You have to be logged in order to get your history. You're going to hit that upper button on your bookmark bar, and you're going to scroll down to the page. And then you're going to keep doing that over and over and over again. Now, there are some ways to automate this using web scrapers. However, AO3 has a built-in safeguard measure where for every 10 page, it takes you 2 minutes to get to the next 10 pages. Admittedly, my 80 pages of history only took me about 8 minutes to get through. So it's really not that bad. Just do some time clicking. When you get to the end of the history, like I am right now, you're going to go ahead and be done. And you're going to go over to where all of these files are downloaded. You might want to check every once in a while just to make sure it's opening. And you're going to create a folder in your files that's just titled whatever you want, something you can recognize it in. Then you're going to highlight and select all of those options, and you're going to drag them into that folder. That just puts all of our files into one easy place, so that way we can get them and load them in really easily to Excel. Okay. Now we've got a beautiful folder that has everything logged in. We can see that it's all in. So now we're going to open up Excel. You can also do this on Google. I would recommend Excel if you have access to it. It's much better. And some of these things that I'm going to do in Excel you can't do on Google, specifically pivot tables. Now you're going to go over to the Data tab of your new workbook, and you're going to go to Get Table, From File, From Folder. It's going to load. It's going to think. My computer's very slow. And you're going to load in that AO3 wrapped folder, that entire folder. It's going to think, it's going to establish a connection, and you're going to get something that looks like this. just scroll through, make sure that there's stuff in there. There isn't stuff in there, you've gone wrong earlier on. And then you're going to go ahead and hit combine, combine and load, combine and transfer, doesn't really matter, just one of the combines. It's gonna think, you're gonna get this, you're gonna hit okay, you can just scroll through, make sure everything looks right. Again, these are just a lot of checks to make sure everything looks right. You can do a skip files with error option if you want to. I personally don't. I only had 2 errors at the end of the day with this file, so it went pretty well. Hit okay. Now we get to the money step. You get this beautiful thing. We're still not in the Excel workbook yet. We're in the Power Query still. And all you're going to do here is you're just going to delete all the columns that you don't want. So I don't care about hits. I don't care about kudos. I don't care about who wrote it or the title. Just clean it up. You don't have to do this step. It'll just make everything a lot easier to look at if you clean up this step. Scroll through, make sure you've got everything. You can see all the things that I kept. I would definitely keep times visited and last visited because we will use that later on for various pivot tables and various data analytics. Then you're going to hit close and save over in that top left corner, and you get this. Beautiful. So you should be able to see your fandoms, your category, your relationships, all beautifully labeled. Your freeform is the other word for tags, ratings, warnings. These are all your data points. So now we're going to start doing data analysis and data looking. Total word count, pretty easy. We're just going to type it in there, and then we're going to type equals sum, parenthesis, and then you're going to go and you're going to select this entire row. Now, my favorite thing in the world is the code Command-Shift-Down, which highlights everything in the row as long as there's stuff to go down. Now you can see there's a slight error there, so that's why I had to do it twice. But it gets there, and now I'm at row 1655, so I didn't have to scroll all the way down, and then I can do Command-Shift-Up and get back to the top. Helpful, helpful, helpful little thing. Okay, and now I have this number as 24,183,000. Now, the issue with that number that I just made is that it doesn't account for did not finishes, and it does not account for rereads. So you want the real accurate number, you need to do these next couple of steps. So because that'll enable us to count rereads and a little bit of DNFs. Unfortunately, we can't get perfect because if you open up a one-shot DNF, so it only has one chapter, there's no way to delineate like how far into that one shot you read. But if you opened up a 24 chapter fic and you only read the first chapter, this will fix that problem. So what you're going to do is you're going to do find and replace. So Control F, Command F, whatever you want to do, you're going to click on the replace tab like you can see here. First, you're going to get rid of the word visited. Then you're going to take the word once, you're going to turn it into 1. We're just changing this into numbers so that we can work with it. And then you're going to get rid of the word times. So that way you have beautiful numbers. We like numbers. We can work with numbers. Numbers are much easier to work with than tags, which is going to be a tedious process at the end of the day. But now we have our number of times we visited each fic. That helps us a little bit. Our next step is going to be, how do we get these chapters versus the visits? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the chapters, we're going to input this long code. It's a mess. You're going to want to highlight that row, same thing as before when we were doing the sum, highlight all of it, type in that code, and it should populate down, and then drag and drop, and you can see that'll be how many chapters it is. So then you want to take your chapters and you want to divide it by your hits. So you want to take that number and you want to divide it by your visits. So that way you can tell if you have, or you want to take your visits and you want to divide it by chapters. Apologies, I could see the error there. So if you visited if you visited twice but there was only one chapter, then you get 2 times because you technically read it twice. Or if it was a 14 chapter fic but you only opened it once, you're only going to get 1/14 of the fic for word count. Then you're going to multiply that number by your word count number, and there you go. Now you have your total number plus your rereads. Do the same summing factor with this word count now. Now I have an error here, and if you can see, it's because this one row didn't populate in super correctly, so I would just scroll through, find the value, delete it. It's just a row that didn't populate. It's probably a deleted fic. Go ahead and delete it, and you'll actually see that my number went down, which means I DNF'd more than I reread, which makes sense for me. Okay, now we're going to get into finding all the various fun things, right? We've done a good chunk of the math. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our bread and butter, which is count if statements, and we're going to count each time that something appears. So first of all, we're going to start off with categories. So MM, FF, MF, general, right? The type of relationship pairing it is. So you're going to enter count F, you're going to highlight that column again, you're going to comma, parentheses, that thing directly in brackets, drag and drop. And you're just going to manually do that for every different category. There are definitely some ways that you could do this non-manually. I'm going to do it like that. Then we're also going to do that for your ratings. So same thing, you want to make sure that they're exact quotes. You want to make sure it's as close as possible to what it is, otherwise it won't count. Now, we'll do a slightly different form for when you just want to count generically what's inside of the statement. So now we want to count relationships. Relationships are a little bit more difficult because there's a lot of different variations on them. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put the name inside of asterisks, and that'll just count any cell that has that name in any form in asterisks. So if you have multiple fandoms, multiple couples inside of a fandom, you're going to want to choose mutually exclusive ones. So ones that aren't in multiple relationships, so that you count exclusivity. Or you can just put the entire thing in direct tags. Then you're going to do the mean word count. So that's just equal average. Highlight that row. Median, again, if you want to do it. Median word count, type in median, highlight that again. You'll get the average. You'll get the median again, and that's a really useful way to see the differences between those two. Apparently this one I didn't scroll all the way up on. And then if you want to count your DNFs, so this is going to be any time that your chapter versus hit ratio is less than 1. You're going to go ahead and enter a count if statement, and you're going to see any time that this row, and then you're going to put a comma, you're going to put a comma, and then you're going to put a comma, quotation mark, less than sign. I put it the wrong way at first, but it's the less than sign, 1. And that'll tell you how many times that there is number in this row that is less than 1, which is 172 times. Then you're going to do the same thing for college, all your AUs, all your tags, just again, highlighting the tag column instead of what other column you're working on before. This one, you just kind of got to know what you read. Unfortunately, I can't find a better way to do it. And then finally, if none of those work, you can also do find and replace. So that's the Control F, and you just count the number of times that it appears. It'll just show you like there. Now, if that doesn't work for whatever reason, you can also do the find and replace, and you just search in the find feature, and then you'll see down at the bottom of that pop-up, you'll see how many times it popped up, and you can use it. Now we're going to do pivot tables. Pivot tables are really cool, but they're a little bit frustrating. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to highlight your entire table. Get it all, you want it all inside of your little brain. And then you're going to go to Insert, and you're going to click on that Pivot Table feature farther over to the left. You're going to, from Table Range, you can either put it on a new worksheet or existing worksheet. I typically put it on a new worksheet. Now you've got this blank pivot table, and you've got these options over on your right, your fields. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to move your word count into your values. So that is going to be your independent variable, essentially. And then you want to look at your dependent variable. These aren't the proper words, but they're words that you might know more of. So then you've got your sum of all your words, right? We know that we read 24, and then you're going to want to drag your fandoms to your rows. And now you can see each fandom and how many words are associated with each fandom. Now, unfortunately, AO3, because of the way it does it and the multiple fandoms, if it's situations like this, you're going to have to go in manually and sum up all of your like red, white, and royal blue variations. So it takes a little bit of time. I'm sure there's a way you could automate it, but I don't have time for it, and it's a 5-second task. So then you have all your numbers, and you can go ahead and create your pretty chart. You just go over into Insert, Chart, 3D Pie, make it all pretty however you want to do that. I'm not a particularly pretty person, but this is typically what mine looks like. Pretty, pretty, pretty. So that you can do that for a lot of different things. If you wanted to count how many of a relationship, how many of a category, you can do all of that as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a second pivot table. Again, you could probably figure out how to do this in one pivot table, but you're going to make a second pivot table, and this one is going to be for the timeline. Highlight everything, again, Insert, Pivot Table, new worksheet, same exact thing, except for this time you want your row to be days, and then when you throw in days, it'll also throw in months. You want to put the months in. And then for your values, you again want to do the word count. Now I got rid of days just because so that way it gives you the months, but you can also remove them. Values, sum of words. Beautiful. Now we've got our beautiful monthly read log. Again, check that that number's right. It will be. Insert, graph. This time we're going to make a bar chart. Beautiful. And that's all it is. Make it beautiful. There's a whole bunch of other interesting things that you can do. I'd love to see what other different projects people do. This is my basic stats, everything that I'm intrigued by. You can definitely do some scary things and look at how many times you read something and how many times you reread a fic. A lot of great options. Have fun.